Pam Bondi spent over a year running. She ran from the documents, she ran from the questions, she ran from the one moment she knew was coming the second she took the job. And for a long time, it worked. She deflected, she attacked, she redacted, she missed deadlines. She hid behind titles and legal arguments and procedural objections. But on April 29th, 2026, the wall finally cracked. And what happened in the next 45 minutes changed everything. Because Pam Bondi is now going to sit in that chair under oath with the files in front of her. And there is nowhere left to run. Let me take you back to the beginning. Because to understand why this moment is so significant, you need to understand exactly what she was protecting and exactly who she was protecting it from. When Pam Bondi was confirmed as Attorney General in February 2025, she came in with one promise that resonated above everything else: the Epstein files. She went on television. She looked directly into the camera. She said the words that millions of Americans had been waiting years to hear. The client list is sitting on my desk right now. Think about that sentence. Not "we are working on it," not "we are reviewing the documents." She said it was on her desk right now. It was one of the most specific, most vivid, most electric statements any senior official had made about Jeffrey Epstein in years. People shared that clip millions of times. The promise felt real. For a brief moment, it felt like the truth was finally coming. Then something happened, or rather, something did not happen. The list never came. The files came in pieces, in fragments, with thick black redactions covering entire pages. Names that had been whispered about for years were blacked out. Powerful men, billionaires, associates, individuals the FBI had once identified as co-conspirators, their names disappeared under government ink, and at the same time, while powerful names were being hidden, something else was happening, something Bondi's own team apparently failed to catch. The names of victims, real women, real survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. Their identifying information was being accidentally released into public documents, not protected, not hidden, exposed. You need to sit with that for a second. The powerful got redacted. The victims got exposed. That is not a clerical error. That is a pattern, and the survivors knew it immediately. They released a letter calling the DOJ's document releases reckless and dangerous. They said it confirmed their worst fears, that reporting abuse would not protect them, it would only expose them. These women had already survived what Epstein did to them. Now they were being victimized again by the very department that was supposed to give them justice. Congress started asking questions loudly. And this is where something unusual happened, something that almost never happens in Washington in 2025 and 2026. Republicans started agreeing with Democrats. The House Oversight Committee, controlled by Republicans, voted in a rare bipartisan move to subpoena Bondi, both parties together, demanding answers about the Epstein files. That almost never happens. When both parties agree that you need to testify, that is not political theater. That is a signal. That signal says the evidence is bad enough that even your own side cannot look away. Bondi was ordered to testify on April 14th. She did not show up. The Justice Department sent a letter saying that because Trump had fired her as Attorney General on April 2nd, the subpoena no longer applied to her. She had left the building. She was no longer a federal official. Therefore, in their legal interpretation, she had no obligation to appear. Democrats rejected that argument immediately. They said her personal knowledge of decisions made during her tenure did not disappear when she cleaned out her desk. What she knew, what she authorized, what she signed off on, what she chose to hide, none of that goes away because the job title changes. So on April 29th, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee did something they had been telegraphing for weeks. They filed a civil contempt resolution against Pam Bondi. They announced it publicly. They said she had illegally defied the committee. She had skipped her deposition. She had refused to cooperate. They said her testimony was crucial. They said she had extensive personal knowledge about the administration's handling of the Epstein files, and they were right. Because here is what the Democrats knew that many people following this story may not fully appreciate. According to one lawmaker who reviewed unredacted portions of the files, there are potentially dozens of prosecutable crimes sitting inside the Epstein documents. Dozens, and not a single investigation had been opened, not one. Under Bondi's watch, with full access to the files, with the legal authority to act, the Justice Department opened 0 new criminal investigations into the individuals whose names appeared in those records. Now think about that in the context of everything else. She said the client list was on her desk. She missed the legal deadline to release the documents. She redacted the powerful while exposing the vulnerable. She defied a bipartisan subpoena. She argued her way out of testimony using a technicality. And through all of it, not one new criminal case, not one person held accountable, not one name brought into the light. Here is what happened 45 minutes after the contempt resolution was filed. Republicans on the committee suddenly announced that Pam Bondi would testify May 29th. The date was confirmed. Democrats did not have to wait days for a response. They did not have to go to federal court. They did not have to escalate further. 45 minutes after the contempt vote was announced, the date appeared. The Democrats put it plainly. Well, look at this. 45 minutes after we file contempt charges, they finally announce the date. That sequence matters because it tells you exactly how this calculation works. Bondi did not agree to testify out of civic duty. She agreed because the alternative got worse. The pressure broke through the wall. But the May 29th testimony is only part of the story. Because to understand what Bondi is actually walking into, you need to understand what happened at her February 2026 congressional hearing. That hearing lasted over 5 hours. 5 hours. And during those 5 hours, something became very clear. Pam Bondi did not want to talk about the Epstein files. She redirected, she attacked, she called Democratic questions theatrics while shouting herself. She said she was stunned that a congresswoman wanted to talk about Epstein instead of other topics. She refused to apologize to survivors sitting in the room behind her. Multiple Democratic lawmakers asked her directly to turn around, to face the women who had survived what Epstein did, to apologize for what the DOJ had done to them. She would not do it. Both times, the exchange collapsed into chaos. The gavel banged. The moment passed. Representative Thomas Massie, a Republican from Kentucky, was one of the co-authors of the Epstein Files Transparency Act, the law that legally required the DOJ to release everything by December 19, 2025. He tore into Bondi over the redactions. He named specific names that had been blacked out, including billionaire Les Wexner, whom the FBI had once referred to as an Epstein co-conspirator. Bondi's response to the Republican congressman who helped write the law was to accuse him of having Trump derangement syndrome. Think about that. She attacked the Republican lawmaker who wrote the Transparency Act she was supposed to enforce. That is what prosecutors and oversight members are working with. That is the record heading into May 29th. And that record is now sitting alongside something even more explosive. Because in the months after Bondi was fired, additional reporting emerged that made the entire Epstein question even more complicated. The Wall Street Journal reported that among the documents in the Epstein files was a birthday letter from Donald Trump. An FBI video footage of Epstein's prison cell from the night of his death, footage the FBI had called raw and unedited, contained metadata suggesting it had been modified, nearly 3 minutes cut from the recording. When you combine a missing client list, 2.5 million withheld files, a modified prison video, and an attorney general who told the public the list was on her desk and then disappeared, you begin to understand why both parties wanted her in a chair. Now Bondi has to prepare for something very different from that chaotic February hearing, a transcribed interview, closed door, formal, every word preserved, no gavel to save her, no crosstalk to drown out a question she does not want to answer. Just the documents, the questions, and her answers on the permanent record. She has been here before in a different way. When she was Florida's Attorney General, her office received a $25,000 donation from the Trump Foundation shortly before her office declined to join a multi-state investigation into Trump University. That story followed her for years. She knows what it means to have documents create a narrative around her decisions. She knows what it costs when those documents end up in public hearings. She knows that the question of what she did and what she knew and when she knew it does not disappear just because she left a job. What makes this moment so significant goes beyond Bondi specifically. The Epstein files are not just about one man's crimes. They are about a system of protection that extended upward and outward through some of the most powerful institutions in the world. Banks, law firms, intelligence agencies, political offices. The files touch all of it. Every delay, every redaction, every missed deadline, every document that gets quietly withheld is a choice made by specific people to protect specific interests. Bondi was the person at the top of that system for over a year. She had the files. She had the authority. She had the legal obligation under a law that Congress passed and the president signed, and she missed the deadline. She redacted the powerful. She exposed the vulnerable. She claimed the list was on her desk and then said she had been misled. On May 29th, all of that comes into one room. The documents will be there, the questions will be there, the record will be there, and Pam Bondi will be there. The woman who spent over a year running from this moment, the woman who called it theatrics, the woman who would not turn around and face the survivors, the woman who filed a legal argument that said a subpoena stops mattering the moment the title changes. None of that worked, all of it failed. The contempt resolution took 45 minutes to produce a date. That is how close she came to staying outside the room. 45 minutes, and now she is going in. Whatever she says on May 29th becomes permanent record. Every explanation, every I do not recall, every attempt to draw a boundary around what she knew versus what she authorized versus what she understood, all of it gets compared to the documents. All of it gets compared to what she said in February. All of it gets compared to the metadata on the prison video and the 2.5 million files that still have not been released, and the client list she said was on her desk. One of the lawmakers reviewing this case said it plainly. There are dozens of potentially prosecutable crimes in those files, and not one investigation has been opened. That statement does not go away. It lives in the record beside everything Bondi is about to say. She spent a year protecting something. We are about to find out what it cost. The moment she feared most is finally here. And this time there is no deadline to miss, no technicality to hide behind, no gavel to save her from the question. The chair is waiting. The documents are ready. And on May 29th, Pam Bondi faces it. All of it. Everything she ran from, everything she redacted, every promise she made, and every question she refused to answer. It all comes back, because it always comes back. And this time, she has to answer. Stay close, because what comes out of that room on May 29th is going to be bigger than anything we have seen so far. And when it does, you are going to want to have heard this first.